Hello, Pop Podcast listeners. Welcome to, again, the Pop Podcast. I am happy that you decided to tune in. If you're wondering again why we call it the Pop Podcast, we call it that because the Bible talks about us being people of peace. And when we think about how the church works, it's like a Lake Tahoe wave here in California, Northern California, that it goes out, but it doesn't just suck everything back in. It kind of leaves water behind amongst the rocks. And we would like to call that like a pool of peace or a portion of peace or something like that. So we hope that we are people of peace that sit in or dwell in pools of peace or portions of peace. So we hope that this podcast is an encouragement to you throughout your week. And maybe there's just a little bit that the Holy Spirit is working on through our conversation between us, but then maybe even for you as a listener. So again, thank you for tuning in. Here with me, I have Jill Lampkin, who is our KidsWorld director. So thanks for joining us, Jill.
Thank you. Thanks.
So every guest, we have a drink for them to review. This one you have to shake
you're
up a little
shaking
bit.
it.
Yes.
Okay.
So this is a Brew Dr. Kombucha. The title of the drink is Clear Mind.
Oh, that's
Okay.
a good title.
And Ashley chose this drink of Clear Mind because you work in KidsWorld. You have a passion for kids, and you
Yes.
definitely need a clear mind for that.
This is true.
Yeah.
Yes.
So as we open this up and give this a try,
Is it gonna?
I know. I did just shake it, huh?
Oh, it's safe.
It is. Mine
okay.
was. Okay. So as you try this, just remember you have to give a rating
Okay.
at the end of the podcast of how much you like the drink. And the scale, just so that you know, is -10 to +10 with a 0 in the middle.
Okay.
So 0 is like, I'm indifferent, it doesn't matter. -1 is like, I'm actively not liking it. +1, I'm starting to.
Okay.
So, cheers.
Right. Cheers. Well, it says rosemary, mint, sage, and green tea. So.
That helps inform us for what the clear mind will provide. Well, there you go.
Okay.
So, clear mind. How does Jill get a clear mind with a passion for kids? They're chaotic. I have 2 littles, so I understand a little bit.
How do I get a? I think I partly still am a kid, so I really enjoy some of the chaos and playing
Yeah.
with them. I think that's how.
Yeah, for sure. And there's lots of ways to play with them in the rooms that have been developed. So that's a lot of fun. I was just at a birthday party last night. Have you seen those? I don't know what they're called, but they're like, it's to build a fort. You can build a couch with it. It can just be like soft things that you're throwing around the room. But those, I mean, the current like kids' toys and things that they come out with just seem to get better and better.
I know. When I was little, they didn't have these things.
Yeah, lots of fort building
Yes,
activities.
Forts are the best.
Yeah. So, okay, Jill, growing up, where did you grow up? What was kind of spiritual background? What does relationship with Jesus look like for you?
Well, I was born in this little town, Northern California, called Placerville.
Okay.
Hospital called Marshall.
Wow.
My family, my parents had been here and got married here. But so I was born here, but then I grew up in Citrus Heights. And I went to church. My parents took me to church. I felt very loved by my family and by my church. I met Jesus at a vacation Bible school when I think I was about 6. And all I remember was sometimes vacation Bible schools have weird themes. There was a big boat, which was really cool. It seemed huge when I was 6. And we were all Vikings, and the leaders ran around with their hats. And so, but I think even before that, I just remember really wanting that connection with God. And so by the time I was 6, I guess I understood enough that I accepted Jesus. And then growing up, I think the peace, I just still really wanted that connection with God, and sometimes would feel it. But I think the way I began to interpret Christianity as I grew up was kind of a list of maybe rules or things I needed to do to please God. And it became increasingly more difficult. And I didn't really understand. I understood we're all kind of sinners hypothetically, but I didn't really understand that when I was little, what that meant, or really
Yeah.
just who Jesus was. So I just kept really wanting that connection with God. And I think as I got older and older, I think I began to feel maybe that's not Christianity, because I hadn't just what
Yeah.
I had experienced. I couldn't find it. I thought, I know there's this power and this connection, and this thing that would really touch my heart, but I didn't, for whatever reason, hadn't experienced that to
Yeah.
the point where I really thought maybe that was who Jesus was.
Mm. Yeah, for me, I whenever I ask God, like, hey, when did I truly accept you into my heart? Because I had a few moments growing up. I'm always taken back to the private Christian school that I went to in first grade. And there was a chapel session, and I truly believe I accepted Jesus there. But then Jesus became real for me truly when I got a call into ministry. That kind of changed everything for me. And that was at kind of a vacation Bible school, but I was a junior in high school. So it was Mission Placerville that we still do
Right.
here. So that's interesting that those two things kind of coincide. But you've had a lot of experience in private Christian school doing music teaching, right?
I
And
have.
we talked about beforehand a lot of the experience of a private Christian school. What if a parent was to come to you and go, I'm thinking about private Christian school for my kids? What would you tell them?
Well, I put my kids in public school
Yeah.
in elementary, which was also amazing. And they had many teachers who were believers, and it gave me the opportunity to do kids clubs and start good news clubs
Yeah.
and do worship in the school, which was amazing. California schools have changed a bit since then.
Yeah.
But and then I also worked in a private school for 6 years teaching music. And that particular school I just really loved. So I don't know if I can speak for every private Christian school, but I think what I loved about it was just that the teachers at a private school, you're there because you love the kids. You're not necessarily there to make huge incomes. You're not there usually for many other reasons, but then you just love the kids, and you want to teach, and you want them to know Jesus. And so the school where I taught, that was really a big thing with the administration, with the teachers. It's also where I went to church on Sundays. But yeah, so if it's the right Christian school, and I'm sure that's the case for most Christian schools, the teachers are there because they want to love the kids and they want to see them know Jesus.
Yeah. And I think, as we were talking about beforehand, that was one of my reflections, is that, like, for private Christian school, it seems like the teachers, just how it's built, have a bigger influence than in public school. So I am so interested. So you're relatively new to Cold Springs, not brand new to Placerville, but relatively new to Cold Springs. And just hearing some of your story of how you chose Cold Springs, how you and Rob prayerfully stepped into that, I think it's such a fascinating topic to dive into. So if you would, just talk a little bit about how you guys chose Cold Springs and as you came back to Placerville.
Okay. So we lived in Bay Area, kind of East San Francisco Bay Area, in Pleasanton for about, I guess, 23, 24 years. And then ended up moving back to this area to be closer to our parents and our family.
Yeah.
And so began the process of looking for a church. And so we tried, I don't know, I think 3 or 4. It's how do you know how to try a church? So we would look them up, maybe get online and watch a little, and started attending, churches in the area, just kind of asking God. And every single church that we attended, we really liked, and we could see ourselves going there. It was, we just saw that people loved Jesus, and so every church, and so we kind of favored Cold Springs. But we thought, well, how do you know this? Because the church you choose is, there's then people who will be a part of your life, and God has things, and so we weren't sure yet. And so we just began to pray and ask him. And we kept attending. We attended a few others at that point, but we would mostly attend here because we liked it. But I kind of held back from really getting involved in anything, because if you get involved in a church and then you realize maybe it's not that one, then you're forming relationships, and that's not fun. And so I think it was one Sunday morning, and I don't even remember what was going on, but both Rob and I, through the same thing that was talked about that morning, just both of us afterwards talked, and we both just felt like we got the confirmation that was the place. And I think it had to do it was God saying, but it was just a feeling of authenticity and community, and that this is where God had us.
Yeah.
But yeah, it wasn't really, it didn't feel like we just went to churches and chose one. There was a waiting process that got a little frustrating for a while, because it was like, I'm living here and I don't really know many people, and it would be nice to be involved in church, but I think I want to wait till God kind of gives the go ahead. And then we just really felt he did. And
I'm stoked that God stepped in and says, Jill, Rob, you guys got to sit here, even though our worship is a little yikes, even though that's like, got to improve that.
Was
God
this for
stepped
Robbie
in
in the
and
next room who's listening?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Well, actually, the worship was one of the things we liked. So,
whatever.
But
Be careful. Robbie, he gets a big head. So I think that is so fascinating. I remember hearing that story as you guys kind of entered in. That's really impactful to me, because my family kind of jumped around different churches as I was growing up. And I wasn't privy to how my parents did that. So they may have had the same exact approach. I just didn't know it. And so I always thought like, oh yeah, you just go to a church, and if you like it, you stay. And if you don't, then you can leave and go to the church down the street and see what's up there. But that has not been your guys' approach, at least at this point. I don't know. I'd love to just talk a little bit about how do we prayerfully make choices. I want to highlight even you talked about you and Rob both had confirmation. So if you had confirmation but he didn't, I don't know if you guys have ever had that situation, but what would that look like?
We tend to get confirmation kind of in different ways, although this way was very much the same way. He's more likes to research things, but then he still waits for God. And I like to research things a bit, but then I feel like I kind of make intuitive leaps into things. But I feel like for me, decisions happen, at least the moving here decision when I starting this job, starting my job at the Christian school. Many of those things were just God dropping a little thought into my brain, and it just kind of grew, and me just thinking of it and kind of thinking, that's a weird thought. I wonder, because for the school, I wonder if they need anyone to just kind of come in and help with some music. At that point, I wasn't working. I'd been home with my kids and had worked before, but I was just kind of in a place where I wasn't working right then. I wonder if they ever need that. And I thought, no, they're a school. They have all the people they need. And then I got a call. It was actually from Rob, because he was part of the board at the time. He kind of called and said, okay, don't say no immediately, but what would you think about coming to the school and helping out with music for a bit, because they're kind of in between teachers and the school year starting. And so I said yes, because God's been talking to me about that, and I just thought it was my own kind of weird thought. And so I feel like a lot of times God drops things into my mind, and they kind of percolate a while. So that's kind of my decision-making process. Often it's something that God has dropped in, or sometimes I've dreamed something. So I don't know if it's just that I don't listen well or not and logical enough, and he kind of has to drop these things in, but it's kind of confirmation if I can wait. And sometimes, I've made decisions where I've just kind of had this random thought and gone with it, and maybe that wasn't God and I needed to wait. But if I can wait and listen often, then he'll confirm that was him, or maybe wasn't him.
So do you think you've missed things that God has dropped in that you convinced yourself out of, or is there anything in reflection that you thought, not that you have to even share specific, but
I think I have, and
yeah.
sometimes those are don't seem like the big things. Maybe the little things where God may have said, "Say this to this person," and
Yeah.
out of my own either insecurity or
Hmm.
introversion or
Yeah.
whatever, I've missed that. And I think there's times that I probably missed speaking a word to a person that
Mm.
needed to be said,
Yeah.
maybe in
Totally.
that piece of their life. Because then maybe something happened later, and I would see, oh, you really had asked me to do
Hmm.
that. Yeah.
Yeah. I feel like I work very similar to you, where I feel like a thought will be dropped in or an idea will be dropped in, and then it just like kind of swirls in my
Mm-hmm.
chest. I always say, like I feel it right there, and then I'm asking God, like, okay, is this you? And like sometimes I'll feel that calm, and that's kind of a no, or it'll churn back up like even
Mm-hmm.
harder, and I'm like, okay, I think so, maybe. But there's that what you kind of highlighted, the prayerful waiting of like, okay, is this God? Is this me? But I feel like there's been a lot of moments that I've convinced myself out of things,
Mm-hmm.
or that um, even that I still pursued it, but then I didn't go as deep as God was intending.
Right.
Um, yeah, there's been a couple moments like that for me. Um, yeah, that honestly I'm probably still weighing through.
Yeah.
It's hard because there's like missed opportunities, or there's things like, okay, well, now do I circle back to that if it's still available? Like, yeah, I don't
Mm-hmm.
know. One of those was this may sound stupid, but talking to someone in music, I really felt like 5 years ago maybe that God was telling me like, hey, learn piano.
Mm-hmm.
And I got a piano and I started to, but then I just dropped it off, and then started having kids in school, and have felt kind of a resurgence to get back into that.
You should.
I know, right? Talking
I'll be the
music, I
voice.
know.
You should.
Yeah, exactly. I gotta get. You should send me videos. I'd love to. I don't know how to do it best, but there's pianos
Mm-hmm.
here, and I have some time here, um, so I will. But there's things that we can come back to, and things that we can't. Um, so I don't know. That's just so interesting.
Mm-hmm.
I love that prayerful weighing through decisions, or big key moments.
Yeah. I think sometimes it's just kind of a learning process for me of realizing, oh yeah, this may be a pattern of how God
Yeah.
speaks, and
Mm-hmm.
but yeah, I don't think I always really recognize that.
Yeah. Well, and I love that, identifying the pattern of how Jesus speaks to us, or God would speak to us, because I mean, Jesus is a person, so he
Mm-hmm.
knows that intimately, but then obviously God has created us, and so he knows how he's created us and how we will hear him.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like a lot of our lives are figuring out, like, how do I hear the voice of God? How does he speak to me? And like I said, at least at this moment of my life, that like swirling in my
Mm-hmm.
chest, I really feel like that's where I have found that. How have you found that over the years? Has it just been through these thoughts, or what is that? How's that developed?
As far as recognizing
Yeah.
how God speaks,
Hmm. Has that changed?
I think it has changed. I think
Mm.
because I don't think I recognized the process, and then I
Okay.
didn't really trust that I was hearing from God,
Yeah.
as I was younger.
Hmm.
Um, and always, because I think, yeah, younger, I think I felt, I don't know if I would say a call to ministry, but I think it was. But when I
Yeah.
was young, I thought it was a very narrow thing for me. I thought, well,
Mm.
that's not real because I'm not a man. Only men do this,
Hmm.
and I'm, you come up with all the reasons when you're younger. But I do think that it was that and is that. But I think it looks differently. I've been in different situations
Yeah.
in life where I realized, okay, this was God was used all these things in life and situations to prepare me to minister in this way in this season in life.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm answering the question, but
You
I
are.
feel
Yeah.
like sometimes the opportunities would present themselves, and I was realizing, okay, God is kind of directing me into this
Yeah.
direction, like the Good News Club. I started with two friends in our kids' public school in Pleasanton, and it went for I think about 6 years while our kids were still there.
Okay.
And we kind of made it look different. We brought in our own worship music. We brought in a keyboard. We did all these things.
Yeah.
Our regional person called us the Rebel Club, but she liked it and she let us do it. But I just feel like those things opened up within the season because when you have, we all had kids at the school, and that was a good season to do that. Whereas I would go into a school now and say, I want to start a club. It would be very different than if you're a parent who has that. So I feel like God has opened up and led differently in different seasons. But each time, even the Good News Club was just meeting a lady who came to visit the church to talk about it. And I happened to sit next to her, and just kind of God opening up things. I know this sounds like the open your Bible and point to a verse thing, but I don't feel it is, because I feel feel like it's being in Scripture and being in prayer, and then that opens up the opportunities to hear from God. Not that I have always done that well, but I feel like if you put yourself in that place with God often, that you're more likely to hear. But not that I've always done it well. I feel like
Yeah. No, oh man, yeah. Now you're getting me excited. Like that, yeah. I love how you say that. Like, okay, reading my Bible or prayer, it's not that you've done that well, or I'll admit like that I've done that well, but it just puts us in a posture to hear, to listen, or it's just, it opens up lines of communication. And I think when you think of it like that, it becomes less of a chore. At least for me a little bit, where it's like, hey, I just want to open up the line of communication with Jesus right now. I think prayer is probably my strong suit on the spiritual discipline side of things. I like to call them relational resources because it helps. Yeah.
It does.
Centers my mind around the open line of communication. Yeah. Prayer has always been something that just walking throughout my day. I mean, even as we're talking, there's like little check-ins. Reading my Bible has been the struggle. But with that open line of communication to confirm things that I feel like I'm hearing, that has really, really helped me a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah. So then, as you're walking with Jesus and keeping these open lines of communication, and we're in a very busy season with Easter approaching. How has God been working on you lately? What has he been maybe even convicting you of, or what has been some of that?
I guess what he's been working on, and this has been for a while now, a few months, more than a few months, is I think he has been showing me grace, and that I have had a not very strong understanding of his grace. Probably a lot, kind of, as I shared, that I kind of had a very just the idea that I had to please God and do these things. And I think even though that's not how I think anymore, as far as that it's up to me, and in my own power, I have to please him, and I have to do these things. But I think, even though I don't think that way, I think you pull into your life things, into your emotions, or just in deep places that you don't realize. And so I think just seeing God's grace, and that he loves me regardless, that has always been very hard. Like, he loves me, but I have to do the right things and keep this love, and this is God's work and it's not my work. I guess, even though you definitely partner with God, and I do want to please God in all those pieces, but just the very foundation of who God is, and Jesus came to love me. And I don't know if I'm describing this well, but just grace. What is that really? So that's seems like I would understand it by now, but
no,
evidently I haven't.
Yeah. Well, and I think it's a journey that we're on to understand it. One of the biggest things for me that I still think about. I heard someone say it, that whenever you're talking to God, like that you've messed up or that there's something that you're feeling convicted on,
Mm-hmm.
how you talk to him really reveals what you think that he's saying.
Hmm.
Because if you're sitting in Denny's, which don't sit in Denny's, I'm on like a mission against Denny's now. I have so many good memories from Denny's, but now it's just awful. I got raw chicken wings there once. Well, I didn't, but
Oh,
my
that
friend,
was,
my
yeah.
table did. Just not a good experience. And then they were really weird. Yeah, whatever. We're just another time. We'll talk
The
about
Denny's
Denny's and my
podcast.
mission
Have
against
Rob
them.
on the Denny's podcast.
Yeah, he doesn't like Denny's, or he does.
He does like
He
Denny's.
he does.
He does. He
Okay.
worked there in high school at this Denny's.
Wow.
So.
Okay. At
So,
this
yeah,
Denny's.
at this Denny's.
So you're both in Placerville.
Well, I never let my. Sorry, we took a big U-turn.
Yeah, that's fine.
My grandpa pastored the Nazarene Church in Placerville, and so my mom was here in high school. My dad was here from elementary school.
Okay.
So they were here, got
Yeah.
married. Rob went to high school here because his family moved up here when he was kind of middle school age.
Okay.
And his mom is still here. So, yeah, both of our families have
Yeah.
lots of roots here.
And then
And he worked at Denny's.
and he worked at Denny's.
Yes.
He worked at Denny's in the good old days.
Yes.
And now, hey, if you like Denny's, I love that for you. But I'm on a mission against it a little bit. So we'll have to have Rob
How
on,
fair.
and him and I can kind of hash that out.
Yeah.
So, okay, going back to, if you're sitting in Denny's and you're listening to a father and a son, or a daughter and a mother, or a daughter and a father, or whatever scenario you want to paint, and you're in the booth and the son is saying, or the daughter is saying, I'm so sorry, I'm so sorry, I'm so sorry, like, daddy and mommy, like, I'm so sorry, I'll never do that again. What do you assume that the parent is saying? Like, don't ever do that again. What are you doing?
Right. It depends on, I guess, what kind of parent you have sitting
It's
there.
true. Yeah.
I'm hoping that
For
the
sure.
parent is not saying that.
Totally.
Yeah, it's you're right. What's our picture of
Yeah,
God? Yeah.
For sure.
So
And
what
then-
kind of father do we think
Yes.
he is?
Yeah. And even if the parent doesn't say that and the kid is still saying, I'm sorry, I will never do that again, they already have in their head
Right.
what they're assuming their parent is going to say,
Mhm.
or what they would say. And so I do that so much with God. And I remember this moment of hearing that and going, oh my gosh,
Mhm.
this is what I think God would say to me. Like, because I so relate to a history of feeling like I had to prove myself to God, or that I had to be clean before going to be with him, which is, again, so ridiculous, as you're saying. But I was totally the kid in the Denny's booth in the good old days going, I'm sorry, I'll never do it again. And so I've had to switch my own like prayer life and language to go, God, like, here's where I'm at.
Yeah. Mhm.
Here's what happened.
Mhm.
Because like that posture of like, God is safe for me to come to,
Right.
and just go, here's what's been happening,
Right.
has changed so much. I
Mhm.
feel like that's in line with the
It
grace.
is, yes.
Yeah.
I wasn't in the Denny's booth, but I would go to the altar very often
Yeah.
in my church
Yeah, yeah,
because
yeah.
I wanted that connection with Jesus, and I didn't yet
Yeah.
understand about that growth with him and that relationship that I could come to
Yeah.
him, with everything and in a way to grow and not just like it felt like starting over. Okay, I messed up. I'm starting over.
Yeah.
Over.
Yeah.
So, yeah, and then as I
Gosh,
started to understand that.
we are so similar, because I feel like you're saying words in my head. I was just had a conversation with someone yesterday, and they were talking about not wanting to miss an opportunity with Jesus, or miss an opportunity of this spiritual moment with him. And that was me growing up, like very similar. I would want to go at least to every altar call. I would raise my hand at every first time believing in Jesus, because it was like, I don't want to miss an opportunity to have this space with him.
Yeah, I didn't know there was a different kind of space, just that
Yeah.
intimacy you could continually
Yeah.
have with him. Yeah.
Yeah. So what moment in your life where you did that kind of switch a little bit, at least? I know we're still learning, and
Yeah. There's a couple moments there was a moment when I felt like I really made Jesus the Lord of my life. And that didn't happen till late 20s. I felt like I'd kind of messed some things up in my just pursuit of what's real. And then I got to the place kind of my late 20s where I realized, okay, I'm not just a theoretical sinner. I really, have sin. And that was the first time I understood, oh, this is why you came. Cause I just began to feel just kind of darkness and stuff I hadn't felt because you grow up kind of in a bubble a bit, or I did. And then I realized, oh yeah, I really, really need Jesus. So things begin to make sense at that point. And then I felt like, in my search, as I was in college and just, I was a psych major doing that, and then very close to the psychology because I was always in the library. I'm kind of a nerd. So I would go with my backpack and bring it home full of books. So also there was like the philosophy and the religion section. So I was on this just quest to, I said I was looking for the meaning of life. Just that quest. I was a quest for connection with God, but I didn't know it. And I thought Christianity was not that. So I was looking at into all these other things. And I feel like I kind of got, into different philosophies, different kind of new agey things that had the feel of, connection. And more I read, the more I kind of thought, some of this is just a bunch of words, but just looking for that. So I had, accumulated all these books and all these things thinking I was looking for truth. Or ones about was Jesus really God? Was, just people looking at all these different things. And then somewhere in there really really made Jesus my Lord and said, okay, I really understand about sin now, and I understand what it means for you to save me, more than I understood when I was 6. And so I felt like I got to that place, and then there was a continued growing process. So I remember as a piece of it, I had a friend in, what's the book? Breaking Darkness, or it was kind of one of those books Neil Anderson, and it was, I can't remember. It was a good book, but it was Overcoming Darkness. It was one of those where you really sit with a person and confess different things in your life. So as we were talking about that, she said, I really feel that this would help you. I think you should go through all of your books, because I have books. She goes, I think you should take out those ones that you feel like were you searching after, things, the books that contain not truths, for whatever type. And I feel like you should get rid of them. She's like, I don't feel like you should go sell them on Amazon Marketplace. I feel like you should get rid of them, throw them in the garden. I'm like, because I love books. I'm like, well, in my mind, I'm like, well, these are still books. And, even if they're not true, they're books about things, and she's going, I really feel you should do this. And I'm like, okay, I really don't feel like I should do this, but I'm going to do this because maybe God is saying this, maybe through this friendship with you, maybe he's saying this. So I remember I loaded them up, and I had about 40 of them, and they're too big for me to pick up in one box. So I had like 5 boxes of books, and I pulled up, because I felt really stupid when no one's looking. So I was like, where am I throw all these books? To the dumpster at our church before worship practice one night. And I threw all these books in the dumpster. And this is still so weird to me. The next time I opened and started to read my Bible, it's like, it says that the word is active and alive. It was like, almost like you felt something just jumping out at you. And I think that was the first time when I really began to experience God's word as alive. Before, it was true, and I knew I should read it, but all of a sudden it just came to life when I kind of took that step to obey, to get rid of some of that untruth. Even at that point, it's just books on my shelf. But it's still, when I think about it, it was just so shocking and jarring when that happened. I thought, oh, there's really power and truth in the words of God. So that's my kind of weird story.
No, there's 2 things that like just jump out to me in that. The first one we'll talk about is that you didn't feel a conviction to throw those books away.
No, I thought she's kind of being a little on the edge.
But then you came to the decision by saying, well, maybe God wants me to do this.
Right, because I committed to go through this with her as my, those programs, it's kind of like you have a person you sit and talk with, and we were working through. So I said, okay, God, you put her in my life, and she, she
Yeah.
thinks this, so I'll go ahead and do it. And I guess they're not the best books to keep anyway.
So, oh man,
But
so
I really
cool.
wanted to sell them on Amazon because they cost a lot of money.
Yeah.
She's going to like, no, throw them in the
Just
dumpster
throw
and
'em
dump
away.
something on them like coffee.
Yeah.
I'm like, no, I'm not
So
going
you
to dump
can't
something
pull
on
'em
my
back
books,
out.
but
Yeah.
I'll throw them in.
Wow. So you were was this like a peer friend, or was she
It
older,
was.
young
She
peer?
was older, a
Yeah,
little bit older than me,
but
but not,
yeah. Negligible.
right.
Yeah.
But and the church at that time, different people were going through the that kind of program
Yeah.
together. So you would kind of partner up with someone. I think
Yeah.
we partnered up, and then we had like
I see.
a bigger, kind of group kind of
Yeah.
seminar thing at the end. But it was so
Yeah.
yeah.
So and women stop aging at like 26.
Thank you.
Anyways.
Yes, I'm 26.
So
We were
so
both
it just
26.
yeah.
Yeah.
That's perfect. Okay, so you were submitted to this friendship because you didn't have a conviction of throwing them away, but you were like, well, maybe God through this person is telling me to do so. How important do you think submission is for to other believers or other mentors is in like the Christian living?
Right. I
Has
never
that
thought
been
of it as submission.
Yeah.
Submission. I'm trying to think.
And maybe that's been
Yeah, I think, had she maybe said to do some other things that I thought weren't good ideas, I probably wouldn't have done them.
Okay.
But I think you need to take it to God and weigh it
Yeah.
because it's
Yeah.
still, you're both still just people.
Yeah.
But you have, so yeah, because at first I kind of was going to blow it off. But then I did take it to God and felt it was a good idea. So I guess, I don't know if I would call it submission. Maybe I would.
No,
but like mentoring and all those things because if you take it to God, I think you should always take it to God
for sure,
and not just
do
it because they said it.
Yeah.
So, but I do feel that it in those kind of relationships it does carry more weight and definitely take it to God.
And there's kind of a both and because like yes it's take it to God because you're both human, but then sometimes I worry about taking things not worry about taking things to God, but I worry about that within me taking things to God that I'll convince myself out of it
right.
and say that and then put God's name on that.
Right.
So I don't know, what do you think about that? What's been your experience? How do you take things to God well for genuine consideration?
Yeah, and I don't know if I don't know if I do it well. Yeah, I guess because it was a hard thing for me to do, and often those, when you're working with a mentor or someone, they may suggest a hard thing for you to do. So I guess don't take it to God and decide it's not a good idea just because it's hard.
Yeah.
To take it if it's
it's good.
I guess biblical and it's and then there can also be times in your family or your marriage or whatever maybe that thing they suggested.
Yeah.
Maybe it's not the timing, but so I feel like don't decide it's not God just because it's hard.
Yeah.
Because it'll probably be hard.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. Nick Campagna, who's on the last podcast, was my youth pastor, and he used to always say, God didn't ask us to pick up our sandals and follow him to the beach. He asked us to pick up our cross. Right. And so don't discount it just because it's hard.
Yeah.
Yeah. So then the other thing that stood out to me was you going through this process with that friend when you guys were both 26 of this like kind of confession and like bringing things out and in that. And I, through regeneration here at church, I have found I just don't want to have anything in the dark anymore. Like and that doesn't mean that I never do or that I don't. I just, where I end up at the end of the night when I'm thinking about like, what do I do? I'm just in such a space that I don't have the headspace or the time to worry and scheme about the things that I'm trying to keep in the dark. Yeah. And so I've tried to keep close friends, close mentors that I can just confess everything to. Because as you know, being on staff or in a position of leadership, like dynamics are just weird. And so there's there's just spaces in my life that just everything is on the table. Do you feel like you have spaces like that? Has that been a consistent thing or just kind of seasons in your life?
I feel like I do, and I have friends. Some of those friends I don't live near
Yeah.
anymore, but I'm also starting regen in
Mm.
week. What are we? 5, 6.
Yeah.
So beginning to find people here
Yeah.
that I can do that with. But yeah,
Totally.
that's really important. I've had people I can look back in life, and there's still my friends,
Yeah.
who, yeah, one friend I think of, her name is Karen, and just going to her, and I don't see her much anymore because we live far away, but different times I can think of where she's just someone, you don't feel judged. You feel you can sit and talk. And
Yeah.
I have my friend Erin and my friend Nicole. I could name off lots of friends. Not a lot,
Yeah.
there's a small number, but those friends who
Yeah.
just you consistently know.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And beginning to form those relationships here, which is because
Yeah.
God puts you in a different place, and then he begins to
Yeah.
bring people.
And what you said about one of those friends is that you can say something, I won't be judged. And so much of that I found has to do with our faces.
Yeah.
Because there are times that I hear something from someone or that I know later that when I say something to someone that they were kind of freaking out about. But if our face or our body language is more neutral and that we let the freaking out happen in our head as we're confessing or hearing confession or just talking as friends, that's so important to create that environment.
Yeah, it is. And then at some point, I think you get to the place where you're thinking, yeah, that sounds crazy, but I know that, I could have been in
Yeah.
these crazy places. So it's kind
Yes.
of like, after a while, it's
Yeah.
like, yeah, you're still my friend. You're still a person. You happen to be in a
Yes.
crazy place, but it's like,
Yeah.
yeah,
And confession seems to bring that.
yeah,
Because if I'm in regular confession of the things that I've kept in the dark or that I'm keeping in the dark, then I'm not surprised that someone's keeping something in the dark or that they had. Because I know
Right.
that I have.
yeah, because you know what it's like to be a person.
Yes.
And yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
exactly. Yeah. Yeah. We were doing a Q&A at youth group this week, and the question seems to always come up of how do I love people that don't think the same thing as me? Specifically, what are expectations for non-Christians and Christians? What does that look like? And I always say that if someone does not have Jesus in their life, if they don't have the Holy Spirit inside of them, that my expectations of them I just don't have any. So if you don't have Jesus, if you don't have the Holy Spirit, and you come to me and you're like, hey, I just murdered someone, I would be like, yeah, I get that. I
You might should
understand
call
how
the
you
police
got
on
there.
me, though.
I'm like, yeah, exactly. I'm like, hey, I have to make a phone call real
Right.
quick. Stay right there.
But you know what it is like to have anger and to have
Yes,
all the
yes,
stuff
yes, yes.
that leads to stuff.
And
Yeah.
when you don't have the Holy Spirit or you don't have God to direct, guide, and inform you, I understand how you got there. Now, if you do have the Holy Spirit, there's just a different expectation of hey, God has put us in community to hold each other accountable, to be with each other. So we're going to have a little bit of a different conversation. But even if you have Jesus and the
Right.
Holy Spirit, I get how you got there. There's no judgment. Now, here's what we both know that the Bible says, and I just want to make sure we're on the same page, right? Don't murder. But I get it. Let's walk through this, so
Yeah.
to speak.
And where I feel like it gets harder is with family members that you care so much about that you want to so I know, with
Yeah.
my own family members, I think more judgment comes, or more face, or more, oh no, I just want you all to be okay. So I
Yeah.
feel like that's where it gets a little harder with people that you feel so much, responsibility for,
Yeah.
or care for. You do for everyone, but sometimes your own family.
Yeah.
And so I feel like sometimes in those situations, it's easier for my face to get the,
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah.
Well, and I'm experiencing that now with my siblings. We're all graduated high school, figuring out young adulthood and all of that. And there's just so many things that I want for my siblings or so many things that that, yeah, just like you're talking about, it's so much harder to hear from my siblings different choices or things that I'm like, ooh, like my face gets a little bit different with them. So it's interesting to highlight that.
Yeah,
I'm
but
in,
it's still for I'm
yeah,
seeing I need to hold loosely and let God work
yeah,
like he works with me, and just
hmm,
not just because you're my family member I can work on you better than God,
yeah.
which is hard. Yeah.
I'm really interested to see because I have two littles, as you know. There's Alora who's 3 and Barnabas who's
Mhm.
1. Um, that's only going to get worse because they're not really making choices. They are making choices and bad choices to hit when they're angry. Barney the other day got mad when we were walking down the KidsWorld hallway over something, and he just stopped and he just like he hits the air. And I'm like trying not to laugh, but I'm like, hey, don't hit things when you're upset.
Mhm.
But so they're making little choices, right? That I have to be a parent and step in. But man, come high school, when it's like now they're making choices and I've got to kind of start to transition out of, yeah, not transition out of parent, but I don't know how it's going to go.
Yeah,
So I don't know anything.
I know.
But
Parent, and then you always feel like a parent.
yeah, yeah. I'm interested to
Always a
see
parent.
how that season will look
Yeah.
like. Right now, we're just trying to survive.
You get to practice with a lot of youth.
That's
So by
true.
the time they're that
That's
age, you'll
true.
have.
Me and Hannah both being in youth ministry because I got called into ministry in like 2014 or 2015, my junior year. And then immediately when I graduated high school that summer, Nick, the youth pastor, was like, hey, come be an intern.
Mhm.
Um, and so I did that. And then a year and a half later or so, my now wife, Hannah, came to be an intern as well. And so we've done youth ministry
Mhm.
up until together, even married together, working together, up until she got pregnant, and we decided
Mhm.
like, hey, and we talked about that even while we were dating, that she wanted to be a stay-at-home mom, and so we knew when that came that that was going to be how it worked, and so I forget exactly where I was going, so that's
That's okay. I
awesome.
forgot to.
Yeah,
I think I changed directions.
totally.
You can pick a
Yeah.
new direction.
So, oh, okay, yes, I remember now. When we were working in youth, we used to talk when we were first married, before we even knew that she was pregnant or we had any kids, that we have a bit of a cheat code because we get to watch and hear about what teenagers are thinking about their parents. And then we get to talk and hear, in some cases, what the parents are thinking about their
Mhm.
teenagers. And then we also get to play a little bit of a mentor, not a little bit, a lot of a
Right.
mentor and like a leader, or hey, stop doing that role in these students' lives. That yeah, we felt very confident. Like, hey, I think we feel more confident heading into like the teenage realm of things with our kids
Mhm.
than the stage we're in now, where it's like, yeah, dear Lord, help us. But yeah, Hannah's worried about girl teenage years.
Oh yeah.
I had one sister, and then later in life got another sister older than me. So I was kind of sandwiched
Mhm.
by two sisters, and I don't know. I feel like I had it pretty easy. They didn't get too crazy.
Yeah.
Um,
Did
but
you get
Hannah,
pampered by your sisters?
no,
No.
no, definitely not.
Not pampered.
Older sister, you know, uh, yeah, super close friend, bully, but super close friend. And my younger sister, we're in so many ways we're so opposite. She's so scholastic and like um just really loves to read, like you're saying, loving to
Mhm.
have books and ideas and like considering everything. That's very much my sister, Elena. Um and she wanted like a couple friends that were like over at the house all the time. They were really
Mhm.
close, but just like a couple friends, and she was good. I'm like, school sucks. The only reason I want to go to school is because there's lots of people that I can go see, that I can hang out with, that I can make friends with. I've got different friends coming over this weekend, and then that group of friends can come over this weekend. And I was always organizing parties and events and stuff like that growing up. So in so many ways, we were so opposite
Yeah.
in some of that.
Yeah, that
But
was my opposite. I was opposite of school.
mm,
I liked school, but the social part was just
yeah,
I
yeah.
was very shy.
Well, that's cool. What in Kids World or in church or in life has been challenging you lately?
What has been challenging me? Um, I guess one thing I can think of going through region, because
Mm,
we're doing that. I'm realizing um, just that I want to, I guess, be better at reaching out and sharing my life. I'm good at being more sometimes self sufficient,
mm-hmm.
and so I want to do that better.
Yeah.
That's my challenge.
Do what better?
Not to just rely on myself, be self sufficient, but to be able to reach out, share more of life.
Yeah.
That's what God is challenging me with,
Hmm.
I think, as I go through this. And each
Yeah.
there's a as you begin the groundwork part before the the
Hmm.
next section starts, there's always the journal about this, tell someone about this. And I'm thinking, I just want to
Yeah.
journal about it and we'll just I'll take care of it, it's fine. But just realizing the strength in being in community, and how do I do that even better, I think
Yeah.
is
Hmm.
that's my challenge
Yeah.
right now.
I have kind of a similar one for myself, but maybe a little bit different of a tune. I just did a trip to Washington D.C.
That's
and
right.
I went to go visit my friend Jared Bell. That he's there, so went to go visit him because fun, miss him. And then he's also highly connected to many leaders, and whether that's religious or non-religious or
Mm-hmm.
whatever. And as much as I've experienced life that has had me grow up and have different perspective on things, I've grown up in Placerville and not even really had too much of a desire to leave.
Mm-hmm.
I was in Elk Grove for a little bit, but really still kind of in Placerville. And so I'm like, okay, in this stage of life, how can I put myself in position to learn wildly different perspectives and kind of bring that back to Placerville, bring
Right.
that back to El Dorado County, and sift through
Mm-hmm.
and weigh that prayerfully.
Right.
Um, One of the things that I have felt God really push on me through a conference I went to, but then also in DC, kind of the culmination was I was having a conversation with this guy, Gavin, and he was saying that too often leaders take the risk of taking the new job or the new position, and then they get good at it. And now they're comfortable and they can
Mm-hmm.
kind of just do well at the position that they're in, make the money or hear the praise of how good that they're doing. But as Christians, we should be the biggest risk takers. We should be
Mm-hmm.
the ones that are pioneering the most, that are starting the most things, that are taking the biggest risks. Because what is our like floor? What is like everything falls apart? Jesus is going to take care of us.
Mm-hmm.
So the floor for us is much higher because Jesus is he's gonna provide. He's gonna take care
Mm-hmm.
of us. And the benefit of the risk is that as we're taking the risk, we have to rely on Jesus.
Right.
There's this moment of like, if you don't show up, good luck. Like I
Mm-hmm.
don't know what's gonna happen. And I have felt very challenged that I've like my risk was full-time youth ministry.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how I'm going to do. I don't know if I'm ready. Like I've got some people that think I'm ready that are going to walk with me. But I don't know what's going to happen. And I feel like now I'm comfortable.
Right.
And I've just felt God be like, "Hey, let's take some risks." And so I don't know what that is, and I don't want to.
Yeah.
And even in that conversation, felt a huge stirring or whirling in my chest of like
Mm-hmm.
God's just saying like, "Hey, I'm going to ask you to take a really big risk.
Right.
Like, get ready."
Do you feel the excitement of it too?
Yes.
The
Yeah.
scariness and the
Yeah.
excitement.
Yeah. Yeah.
'Cause
Of
it's a
like
new
what's going to
thing.
happen.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But then the scared for
Yeah.
sure. Yeah. So what? I don't know. Yeah. That's been a huge thing tugging on me
That is.
of the risk.
Yeah. Because you just get to the place where like, okay, I kind of see all involved in this job, and I
Mm-hmm.
feel comfortable, even though there's new things that always
Yeah.
happen. And then
Yeah. Totally.
what's the next place?
Yeah. Because there's new things like we've got so many events going on, right? Palm Sunday
Mhm.
Experience is coming up quick. There's so many things that are happening. While those are new, I don't know. At least for me right now, they
Right.
aren't risky because we've done it before, and we're at least you, me, and Robbie have worked together a
Mhm.
lot now in some of those events. So it's more comfortable at this point.
Right. So maybe the next, I don't know if it's a risk or what the next step
Yeah.
for me is at least thinking into how do we use these events to
Yeah.
reach beyond ourselves, which
Mhm.
it is somewhat, but
Yeah. Absolutely.
are there more, other people that can come and find
Yeah.
a life with Jesus?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
In a lot of ways, this podcast, we're doing this
Mm-hmm.
while I'm a huge podcast listener. Like that's one of my main, it's either music or a podcast when I'm in the car every day. This is still a little uncomfortable. Like I'm
Yeah.
still trying to
Oh
figure
yeah.
things out.
Yeah,
and
that's my answer. This is
Yeah.
how did I not even think of this?
You're like, this
But
is the
an
risk.
introverted person coming and having a camera, microphone,
Yeah.
and not
Yeah.
knowing
Mm-hmm.
not knowing what we're going to talk about.
Yeah. Danny Davis has told me that she will not come on the podcast. But now you're the introvert one that I can go, well, if Jill did it, you can do it, Danny. We've got this.
I didn't realize there was a not option. No, I didn't.
Yeah. Yeah. And I didn't
I
tell
was
her
happy
that
to
there
come
was
on
a
it, but
not
it was
option. Yeah.
with some trepidation.
Yeah. It's, I don't know. We're in a room that we know and it's somewhat
It
comfortable.
is.
It can be. Well, that's awesome. Well, I think that we'll just kind of wrap it up. Thank you for being here. So we have the Brew Doctor Kombucha, Clear Mind, and you've taken your second sip now out of the whole time that we've been discussing and talking together. Third sip, yeah. So as you highlighted before, rosemary, mint, sage, green tea. There's just lots of flavors there.
There are.
I had an empty stomach coming into this. And I think that was a mistake.
It's kind of, it does feel very clean. It tastes very clean.
So it should have be renamed Clean Mind.
Clean mind.
Clear, clean.
Clear,
yeah.
clean mind.
Yeah, it's USDA
tastes-
organic.
It tastes healthy.
Yeah. Yeah, it says gut friendly. I don't
feeling
know.
I'm not sure.
Benefits. I'm not feeling the gut friendliness of it right now, but that may be because my gut isn't very friendly and that it's doing some work in there. So that's great. So yeah, the rating scale is -10 to positive 10.
-10 to positive 10.
What would you rate the Clear Mind Brew Doctor Kombucha?
Well, positive 10 that you guys got me a drink. So that,
yeah, the gift that we gave you.
Yes. And let's see. It's not bad. Like, it's not a -10.
Yeah.
I would say maybe like, I don't know if I would get it again,
Okay.
but maybe I would say like a 4.
Okay.
It's a 4.
That's a pretty good score in my book. I think, yeah, that's one of the higher scores that we've gotten on the drinks that we get.
It's not
Yeah.
bad.
Yeah. I'm with you. It's kind of
Yeah.
neutral.
You kind of taste the kombucha.
Yeah. I've got,
yeah.
hopefully not too much kombucha. I've got, this will be my first 0.
It's a 0.
I don't feel negatively. I don't feel positively about it. It tastes fine. And
It kind of tastes like you could clean with it. Like you could,
that
like,
would,
but it does
that would
not
usually imply harmful to ingest.
Well, it's just,
But yeah, I mean, I guess I kind of get that. Well, Jill, I just have to say thank you for coming on, and it's been a blessing to work with you and get to know you more and more. I feel like I know you a lot better from today as well. Just thank you for
thank you.
who you are and what you are to Cold Springs Church in this moment, in this season.
Thank you. I love it here.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you guys for joining into the Pop Podcast. Here's what I'd love to challenge you to do is that we're getting some views on these and we're seeing that. I really want to see some comments. I want to see some engagement. I'm trying to figure this out. Me, Robbie, Ashley, we're working together on this. We're trying to figure out what we're doing and how to do this better and what would serve you guys the best. So we want to reach Cold Springs, but we also want to reach outside of Cold Springs, very much so. So please send a comment or let us know how we're doing or what we can do better or who we could have on next. Please we'd love to hear from you. I'm just trying to figure it out. So help me do that. And again, we drop every Wednesday. We're going to be making a separate social media account, separate YouTube account to be able to post this on. So be looking out for that. The Pop Podcast is what we're calling it and where we'll launch it. So again, thanks for tuning in and for being a part of this as we're getting it started. Love you guys. Talk to you later.
Bye.